Hello and welcome to our very special broadcast here on CNBC-TV18 on a historic day. I'm Shereen. Bhan. It's taken 14 rounds of negotiations over 3 years and 4 British Prime Ministers, but the much-awaited free trade agreement between India and the UK finally inked. Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Keir Starmer today inking the FTA at Chequers House in the UK. Well, essentially, this does bring down tariffs on both sides, and it also opens up the opportunity for additional exports. And of course, both sides hoping that this will increase bilateral trade by £35 billion annually. Joining us now to talk about what this means for both sides is Sunil Bharti Mittal. He was leading the business delegation. He was there when the FTA was inked by the two Prime Ministers. Mr. Mittal, many thanks for joining us here on CNBC TV18. As I pointed out, it's taken 14 rounds of negotiations over 3 years and 4 British Prime Ministers to finally get the India-UK FTA done. You were there when both Prime Ministers were signing this. Take me through that moment to start with.
Well, as you rightly said, this is truly a historic moment, and a lot of work has gone behind the scenes over the years. And you rightly said, it's gone from multiple Prime Ministers on the UK side, and wherever we had a solid continuity of leadership for 11 years, actually. And the last 3 years were, in particular, very hectic. Trade deals, Shereen, are never easy. They're very difficult. How do you match aspirations of two countries, its people, its requirements? Businesses have different pulls and pressures. What you want is what they resist, and vice versa. So to start with, let me say, I must applaud the leadership of both the Prime Ministers to finally come together to get to a conclusion of this historic deal. This, to my mind, could actually set up a real roadmap for many other such deals with the Western world. And today, you could see in that room, in the very intimate setting at Chequers, a tremendous amount of energy between both the sides, bonhomie, friendship, exchanging commitments between not only the political leaders, but business community, to take the trade, investment, and trade both in goods and services to the next level.
Mr. Mittal, as you pointed out, trade deals are complex and of course it takes a lot of negotiations on both sides. Both sides believe that this is a win-win. But let's talk about some of the specifics. Now, average tariffs to be reduced from 15% to 3%. Tariffs have in fact been removed on 99% of goods and services. But in the immediate term, there are concerns, for instance, on the Indian side. What happens to the Indian automobile sector? What happens to the Indian alcohol beverage sector? Those are two sectors that have expressed their concerns. What we have seen as part of this FTA is a kind of phased reduction of tariffs as well as a quota system. So if you can explain to us where you believe the most opportunities lie, but also whether the vulnerabilities have been addressed.
I think you rightly pick up that there will always be concerns whenever such trade deals are signed. Let me start by saying that the British tariff for Indian goods have almost always been very, very low, and India has continuously enjoyed the low tariff entry into the UK for its products and services. Now, while granting lower tariffs on multiple areas like Scotch and automobiles and some other areas like soda and soft drinks, etc., I think India very nicely calibrated the impact of that on the local industry. I think each one of these industries that you have named have tremendous amount of local manufacturing with very high degree of local content. So I think the Indian industry need not worry in these areas. If UK products were to come to India, even with reduced duties, that the cost of manufacturing in UK is extremely high compared to India. Transportation, logistics, insurance, a lot of things come added on top of that. So other than a very niche upper crust market, which will want very expensive British products, I don't think so in terms of mass consumption, there should be any cause of concern. And on the other side, the opening up of services agreement, which allows Indian chefs, musicians, teachers, nurses to come more freely into the UK, to my mind, actually delivers a significantly higher benefit for India. And as in the end, you rightly said, it's got to be a win-win. You just can't take all and not give anything. I think it's been a great balance. We will, during this interview, talk about other significant issues of benefit like cooperation in defense and space and many other things. But on pure supply of goods, which is a trade bloc, I think in that the whole trade deal is very nicely balanced. And if I may hasten to add, perhaps more in favor of India.
Perhaps more in favor of India. That's an interesting comment there coming in from you, Sunil Mittal. You address the issue of defense, you address the issue of aerospace, etc. And these are, of course, areas of mutual interest as well as perhaps more deeper mutual cooperation. Now, in light of this FTA, but also in light of the geopolitical dynamics and the ever-changing geopolitical dynamics, what does this FTA do specifically to deepen collaboration and cooperation in both these areas?
Yeah, so first of all, let's start. These are two economies of similar size. India at $3.5 trillion and UK about the same size. UK has the advantages of a lot of areas of technology, biosciences, defense, very deep technologies on missile technology, space technologies. And yet they do not have adequate manufacturing facilities, talent pool that is required to back them up to be world champions. On the other hand, India has a very large market, unlike UK, which is a much smaller population. It has the talent, it has the low-cost manufacturing facilities. Now, imagine if you combine these two complementary benefits that each country can offer to each other, you become a force multiplier. India is poised to be a $25-30 trillion economy. UK recognizes that, and therefore we're very happy to embrace and talk about deep technology partnership, which usually the Western world has not opened up to emerging economies. So in that sense, this will be a very special advantage for India to get access to technologies for its own needs, own markets, but more importantly, exporting across the world. To the current, the total business between UK and India is at about $56 billion. This agreement has an ambition and a vision to take this to $120 billion in 5 years' time frame. And that's a real strong vision that has been set up by the two prime ministers. And I know that the Indian government, Indian Prime Minister personally himself, and of course our Trade Minister, Mr. Goyal, worked on each item of this deal personally to ensure that there was a very important advantage that India gets while opening its market, which UK will gain by sending, of course, as you rightly said, more products into India. But I personally feel the bigger advantage will come from UK companies investing in India and creating bases in India, which will be high talent pool that they can access, low manufacturing cost, and make the world their market, which I can tell you, having now worked in UK for several years, is hard for UK companies to come to those levels of competitiveness that India can offer them.
So that's exactly, you preempted my question, because, the expectation or the assumption is that with the tariff reduction, will there be incentives for UK companies to consider local manufacturing? You're saying that, yes, you see that happening. Are there any specific sectors where you believe we will see more of that happening? And do you also foresee more joint ventures between UK companies and Indian companies in light of this?
Yeah, so, we need to put it in perspective. $36 billion of investments have already been made by British companies in India. From Indian side, about $20 billion have been invested in UK in setting up companies. So UK in that sense is already ahead. And now with many of their, industry players seeing a lower duty structures in India where you can import stuff at a much lower duties than they were previously, incentivizes them to have bigger presence in India, both for their own goods that they can produce here and sell in India, whatever limited market they could get at the upper crest, but equally start to manufacture some of those parts, complete products in India to have bigger slice of the Indian market. So if I was a British businessman and I know that the duties are low now, the country is open for business, we can move people between the two countries in a seamless manner. I think it makes the decision making in the boardrooms much stronger in going into India to manufacture and set up larger bases in India.
You were speaking hypothetically from a British businessman's point of view. Let me ask you to speak realistically from an Indian businessman's point of view, Mr. Mittal. As you said, you've had business interests for several years now in the UK with that sizable investment that you've done in BT. Specifically from your point of view, between OneWeb and BT, etc., do you see yourself expanding your own bet on the UK? And do you believe that other business leaders in India, other business houses from India will consider making similar bets on the UK?
I would think so. And you will see most of that coming through acquisition of some UK companies. As I said, technology is very advanced. Markets are small. And we are already seeing companies like TBS, who have picked up the Norton motorbikes here in the UK, where they are manufacturing very high-end motorbikes. They were on display today. Our companies which are in the beauty areas like Kama, Nykaa, Forest Essentials, they're all making their inroads into the UK markets, trying to acquire companies here to get better technology, better access into the Western markets. So I see a much better roadmap for Indian companies to come and invest here. You know that the big unlocking of the monies that were put through the contribution side have been a big problem for Indian companies, where giving the contribution into the UK pool for Equal and Provident Fund and medical, etc., were a waste for Indian individuals when they went back home. Now, UK has in this agreement given a 3-year waiver on the double contribution commitment, which means that the Indian employees which are going to be working here will not be required to pay those contributions, saving nearly 4,000 crores of rupees to the Indian companies. So Indians can now come invest here, bring talent, and fire up the local companies which are generally otherwise not having such large markets or talent pool. So I would say you will see a lot more Indian companies coming and investing here.
What about your own appetite, sir, to expand your presence in the UK?
Well, we are, as you know, taken a big position both in OneWeb and BT. We are, looking at more opportunities here in the UK. We also have hospitality sector where we came some years back. We have a number of marquee hospitality hotel properties, real estate properties here. So we are certainly looking at opportunities, and we remain very agile and open for new opportunities.
I'll come back to you in a second. Let me bring Chandrajit Banerjee into the conversation as well. CB, many thanks for joining us. We were talking about the road ahead as far as both India and the UK are concerned in light of this FTA, but specifically on the services side of the story, with mobility being given a less or a more frictionless, approach now. What do you see as the big opportunity for Indian companies in the services sector?
So one of the biggest opportunities that we see here would be for the mobility for India. You heard about Mr. Mittal speaking about the number of Indian companies working in the UK, and which is going to expand, which is going to increase, and we see a much easier movement of many of them from India, because the talent pool for the type of companies that are coming into the UK is not so very strong in the UK. So that offers a phenomenal opportunity for our people to move in with ease into the UK. That's number one. Number two, also, if you really look at when you talked about services, there are specific areas of opportunities which may not be strictly coming within industry areas. Areas like, say, for instance, chefs, musicians, even yoga practitioners, say for instance, all of them would get much. It will be much. This will facilitate inflow of many types of from those sectors to come and really practice here. And education is going to be another very key area where we see some of the great opportunities of working and collaborating together. So services sector, indeed, besides what Mr. Mittal covered, I think these would be some very, very clear areas where we can see a lot of mobility come, and services was a huge component in especially when movement of people is concerned in the trade agreement.
You brought up education, and that would be another interesting opportunity on both sides. Is there any indication at this point in time, CB, that we could see parallel campuses of UK institutions being set up here in India? Do you foresee that as being an eventuality?
Yeah, so what we are going to see going forward is we have already seen 4 big universities getting into India, opening up campuses there. And with our new education policy and this trade agreement, we see a lot more collaborations which will come up between our universities, Indian universities, and theirs. Joint degrees is something that could probably come up. And of course, themselves opening more campuses in India. And also the collaboration between our industry and their academia. Well, so both the academia to academia collaboration, there's opening campuses in India, and of course, Indian industry R&D over here is so strong. There could be a lot of advantages that could be taken through the trade agreement through the academia.
So in your assessment, Mr. Mittal, in light of the work that's already been done, but more importantly, the current playbook that exists, where do you see the maximum benefits in the shortest amount of time on both sides? Mr. Mittal? Sir, you're on mute, sir. Mr. Mittal, you're still on mute, sir. Well, we seem to have had some issues there with the audio. But CB, the same question to you. Where do you see the most benefit in the shortest period of time, given where we find ourselves today?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Go ahead, sir.
Sorry, there's been some problem on this side. So what I'm saying is the UK Parliament has to put its stamp of approval in the coming days and weeks. I would say as soon as that is done, this agreement comes into shape. Indian business, and like all of the businessmen, are first tuned to make their plans in their mind. And I think with this agreement, everybody will start to sharpen their pencils to see what products they can export to UK, where are the benefits that they can take, which investments they can make. And I would say within this financial year itself, you will start to see a trajectory which will be quite steep, demonstrating that we could double the trade in 5 years or even lesser in the services, goods, and importantly, FDI into both countries.
Mr. Mittal, you said that you hope that this deal kind of becomes the template for other deals that India is hoping to ink. We were hoping to have a deal with the US. Of course, talks are on. We are given to understand that the 6th round of negotiations will now perhaps happen in August. So that 1st of August deadline, we may or may not have a deal. What's your take on where we find ourselves in dealing with the US and the possibility of getting that deal done?
Well, I think that, as you know, has been in the works also in the last several weeks. Many times have been said. I think probably we will need a little bit more time there. There are a lot of issues. US is a huge market for imports as well as exports. I would say that is an area for the government to negotiate. Definitely, could there be an interim deal? Then a final. Let's see how that works out. But this UK deal on the back of FTA deal of 4 countries in Europe, UAE, Saudi, Australia, I think India is gaining ground. And if EU was to happen in the coming months, I think one of the big US trade deal India would have covered the globe. And I remain hopeful that despite some of the inseamers and curveballs that are coming from the US, Indian negotiators will be able to come to a balanced outcome there as well.
in seamers and curveballs. CB, hitting with a straight bat is what the Prime Minister spoke of today, saying that India will always bat with a straight bat. In light of the negotiations that are currently underway with the US, what's your expectation?
So, I think India has been pretty transparent about the trade deals that it has been getting into over the last few years, if I may say. And with the US also, there's a lot of consensus on amongst the Indian industry, especially sector-wise, as well as with the government. And I think India looks forward to Indian industry, I think, and the government partnership has helped in terms of coming together on many areas which were not so very clear from Indian side much earlier. But today we are clear. I think the other side would have to be coming onto the table, and sort of we have a sort of a certainty, anybody's guess as to how much it might take. But at the same time, I would think that India is pretty much prepared. Both Indian industry is very much prepared to see how we can be fair in this game and work out a win-win solution.
Let me end by asking both of you, and Mr. Mittal, I'll start by asking you, from the large SME audience perspective, the large SME-based perspective in India as well, and they would be examining and assessing this opportunity. What will it mean? Of course, we've talked about what it means as far as big business is concerned, but for the large SME base, what potentially could this mean? What could it mean as far as the agriculture sector, for instance, is concerned as well?
Yeah, so I would say, let me start with the SME side first. All those companies which are engaged in manufacturing of small auto parts, other machinery parts that are being hand tools, etc., they are bound to gain from this FTA. Gems and jewelry in particular, which is in big demand here and one of the large portions of our trade deal. Most of the artisans that are working in these areas will get a leg up with the reduced duties now, better access to the markets, more importantly, being able to send their talented workers here to the UK on site for some final assembly and finishes, etc. And not to forget our leather industry, footwear industry, which is a huge, employment generating activity in India. We'll also get a huge market here in the UK. So I would say from SME point of view, and I'm glad that you asked this question, because that's where most of the employment gets generated and economic momentum takes place, right at the mid to bottom end, is bound to gain from this trade deal. Because India has much, much more to benefit from the opening up of the sector meant for SME than the other way around.
CB, quick take on agri as well, because as Mr. Mittal pointed out, labor-intensive sectors, hoping that this opens up a new market, a bigger market. But on the agri side, there is opportunity as well.
Yes, absolutely. On the agri side, on the food processing side especially, which opens up a lot for the Indian small and medium companies and UK also has strengths in the food and agriculture, especially the food processing sector. I think there is tremendous scope that comes up. I want to end with one point, Shereen. Mr. Mittal is the co-chair, which has been the co-chair of the India-UK CEOs Forum. And in the India-UK CEOs Forum, which many of the members of that have been able to travel in this business component, which is being led by Mr. Mittal, we see some critical small, medium sector institutions being included in a CEOs Forum. That opens up a huge channel of discussions as we go ahead in implementation of the trade deal which has been signed. So a lot now to be done. The implementation now has to be done, and the CEO forum and other formats of the industry and business will really have to take leverage and take advantage.
So, Mr. Mittal, let me end by asking you, as the co-chair of the UK-India CEO Forum, what are the targets, the 2 or 3 big targets that you've set for the forum? And, in terms of outcomes, what would you like to achieve, at least in the first financial year?
Well, my engagement with my British counterparts is really on the high-end technology sector, whether it's hypersonic missiles or it's drones or UAVs, to transfer those technologies to India, set up their shops in India. India is, through this trade deal, opening up its government procurement sector, public procurement sector, to the British companies for certain volumes above a certain threshold. And that is where now the UK companies need to understand what has been done for them and look at Indian opportunities. And I will be in the coming weeks meeting all the CEOs of the large British enterprises to showcase what they can do in India under this FTA.
Mr. Mittal and CV, appreciate you joining us today as we saw both Prime Ministers Modi and Starmer ink the India-UK FTA. Thank you very much for giving us your insights on the road ahead as well as the execution roadmap from the CEO Forum's perspective. Appreciate your time and thanks very much for joining us on CNBC-TV18. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up this special CNBC-TV18 broadcast with the contours of the India-UK FTA and what it means for Indian business and for the economy. From all of us here, goodbye. Thanks for watching.